is a copy of the chair's report. It's there on the top of that marble piece if you would like to have a copy and read it in more detail. And at this point, I'd be happy to field any questions that you might have.
So now that the pill mills have been shut down because of state legislation, where is the supply coming from?
One of the things that we learned from the pharmacy board recently is that the pill mill legislation is having a very positive effect on the amount of supply of prescription opioids in the system. As a matter of fact, according to a recent report out of the OR system, we've seen a 6% decrease in the opioids that are being prescribed in the state of Ohio. So that legislation has gotten tremendous traction and was a really important first step for us. I think now the challenge that we have before us is to look at the not just, say, bad actors in the system, but the overall medical system as a whole.
Recently, the governor and the Department of Health, and they put out new opioid prescription guidelines, but they're just guidelines. Do you guys plan on codifying these guidelines and putting this in the law?
I think that in general, what we heard in our committee is that there are a lot of medical professionals and hospital systems who already have in place guidelines as to how to prescribe opioids, particularly for non-cancer chronic pain. And what we noticed in our hearings in the committee was that those guidelines were excellent. As a matter of fact, as we met with the governor's opioid action team last week, we heard about those guidelines, and in a lot of respects, they overlapped what we learned about from the medical community and the hospital systems are the best practices in prescribing opioids in our medical systems. I think that we would like to see more than just guidelines, but something that has more teeth to it so that we're able to turn the tide of this epidemic. Is that fair to say?
Dennis?
I think it was last week when your chamber voted for the syringe exchange program. And I'm assuming that all of you voted for it. I'm not sure. But could you have envisioned yourselves voting for a bill like that if you hadn't heard the testimony?
I think that this was a real journey, not just around the state for our committee members, but really a journey in kind of our knowledge of this problem. One of the important things that we learned was that initially, when you begin to abuse prescription drugs, that is a choice. That is a choice. And it's a bad choice. It's a terrible choice. It leads to a horrible, devastating problem for yourself. But once you are in the throes of your addiction, it's nearly impossible to help yourself get out of it. And we learned that treatment works. And I think that it would be safe to say that had we not been on this journey over the last 4 weeks, I, for one, would be very skeptical about a syringe exchange program. But hearing the testimony, particularly in Cuyahoga County, and learning from Representative Antonio how important this program was to limit the spread of hepatitis C in people who are struggling with addiction, I think that that's one of the reasons that the bill came to the floor so quickly, was that we, I think as a committee, and also across both aisles and both caucuses, as we develop our understanding for this, we know that, as Representative Smith said, there's no silver bullet, but that there are a number of measures that have to take place. And the syringe exchange program is a very important piece of that puzzle.
There's some funding increases, at least for specialty court dockets in here. Have you identified the source of that money yet for the legislation that will be forthcoming?
It's a wonderful question, and we're actually working on that as we speak. And so I think that it's important to note, one of the things that we heard is that there are pockets of the state that are getting tremendous results in terms of treatment for opioid addiction. And what we noticed as we traveled the states was that these pockets all had three things in common. First of all, They included 5 different elements of treatment. They included a detox component or stabilization. They included medication-assisted treatment, because this is a very physical addiction. And so your mu receptor in the brain needs to somehow be gloved or covered so that it takes away the physical craving so that you can focus on the other elements of your treatment. It includes counseling, intensive counseling. So what we learned is that addicts, people struggling with addiction, often have an underlying mental illness or a mental health problem. And that needs to be addressed with counseling, intensive counseling. We know that it often involves a 12-step program, like Narcotics Anonymous, built on Alcoholics Anonymous. And that it includes peer support, a strong peer support element. And we noticed that throughout the state, there were different areas where they were able to pull all together these 5 different elements and integrate them into a solution over a long period of time, and that had tremendous success. And one of the areas that we saw this being done was in the specialty docket system. For example, Judge Moses down in Hocking County, who's a municipal court judge, has very few resources, and yet he's been able to cobble together these 5 different elements. He uses the jail for detox. He has a local physician that comes in and helps people while they're in jail to manage their symptoms. He has his local mental health board there to provide counseling. He's figured out volunteers for a 12-step program. He's developed his own network of peer support people. And as a judge, he helps, basically as the case manager in his probation department, helps integrate all those elements together. The judges that run these specialty dockets that we saw up in Cuyahoga County, Judge Mattia doing the same thing. They are having tremendous success because they can use the power of the Black Road to bring all those elements of treatment to one place and bring that to bear for an individual's success.